Sports conversation on the Believe Network with James Navalins. Joining us today, Anthony Pugh, basketball player development coach, Clockwork Skills. First off, I appreciate you taking the time, short notice getting on.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me. Anytime I could come on anything like this and talk basketball, I'm always going to be about it. So I appreciate the opportunity. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely, man. So yeah, just take me into your background. Kind of obviously like you have a ton of followers on Twitter. I do see the posts, all that kind of stuff. Just take me to your player development background and kind of how you got into this the entire thing.
Yeah, so kind of to make a long story short because it's a very long story. Obviously played in high school, small high school. I'm small in stature myself. I'm probably 5'6", 5'7". I tell people all the time I've lied about my height so many times. I don't even know how tall I really am. So not a Division I athlete by any means. I mean, I'd like to think that I was relatively skilled, but just didn't have the physical attributes, which unfortunately you can't control. But I'm a control the controllable guy, so I like to control whatever I control, and that was work ethic. I worked my butt off, and I actually became real good friends with a couple players over at Robert Morris in Pittsburgh when I was young. I used to go to their basketball camp all the time, and I became real friends with like guys like Velton Jones, Carvel Anderson, Lucky Jones. If you know anything about Robert Morris basketball, I mean those guys. I was talking to Carvel the other day. Those guys kind of built that program. So like where it's at now, and beating Kentucky, all that's great. But those guys were kind of behind the scenes, really building and winning games with Coach Toole, who's still there. But they became real fond of me. I was young, I was small, so I was kind of easy to pick out. I'd go to the camps every year. I did pretty well when I was there, and I became friends with these guys, like actual friends. So we kind of stayed communicating. I used to go up there in the summertime, like late August, and my brother at the time lived in Pittsburgh, so I would stay with him, and I would drive over to Robert Morris. And just basically stay all day and just work out. I mean, we'd work out 4 or 5 times a day. I mean, like I knew, and this was it. I was in the eighth grade, like so.
Yeah.
I knew what the college grind was like and all that in the eighth grade. So I kind of knew, growing up what I had to do because I knew what guys like that were doing, and that's the level. Obviously, when you're young, it's the level everybody wants to compete at. You want to play at the highest level. So I became real good friends with them, kind of moving forward a little bit throughout high school. We stayed communicating, whatever. Carvel went over and played overseas. Velton and them graduated. I still went to games. I mean, I would go to games all the time. I was actually rewatching a couple games from the NEC when they were in the NEC a couple years ago, and it's just funny now watching those games, remembering like I was there, for all these big games. So I was a senior in high school, and I'll never forget it. It was right before a district semifinal, and I got a text from Carvel, and he was like, "Hey, what are your plans for college?" And at the time, I mean, I was getting some Division III looks, couple Division II looks, no really firm offers, just kind of interest. So I really didn't know. And he was like, "Well, I was talking to Coach Toole. He would love to have you as a walk on. Like, you should reach out to him." And like that's all he had to say. If the opportunity was there, then I was in. So I actually Facebook messaged Coach Toole, and I said, "Hey, Coach, I would love to have take any opportunity you're willing to give me." And he said, "Yeah, give me a call." Gave me his phone number. I gave him a call, and I applied to the school, got into the school. Again, as a walk on. I mean, it's not really preferred, but I didn't just show up. You know what I mean? Like it was like
Yeah.
preferred, but not preferred. No money, no anything like that. Just everything's on my own dime. So I go to Robert Morris. Obviously I'm excited. I get there early. I'm working out with the guys, and then kind of as the season progressed. I mean, if anyone knows anything about being a walk on, number one, like people think that you're just like a ball boy or whatever. Like I did the same things all the scholarship guys did. I actually did probably more because like I had to push all the scholarship guys. So like I was doing extra on top of what was already required, So it's like the perception of walk-ons is kind of funny because people think like, oh yeah, you just stand there, or oh yeah, this, that, another. Like, no, you're a player. You might not get in the games as much, but like behind the scenes, you're doing everything they're doing, if not more. So kind of as the season progressed, I became real close with our starting point guard at the time, and that was Kayvon Stewart. He was a junior. He was a starter the past couple years. I don't know what it was. We just kind of became attracted to one another. He would come up to the gym, late, because what I would do was I'd work out before practice and I'd come back later in the day. I'd work out after practice. I mean, I was working out literally 4 or 5 times a day on top of our weight room stuff, our practice. I mean, things like that. With that being said, in practice, I probably wasn't getting as many reps as I wanted because you're a walk on. So, that's just
Mhm.
part of the territory. So, a couple nights I was up there and I was always by myself. And then he kind of started to come up and, he would go on one hoop, I'd go on the other. Obviously, I'm a little bit intimidated because he's, the starting point guard. I'm a walk on. Naturally,
Mm.
that's how it is. He's done a lot. I've done nothing. So it's kind of like, yeah. But one time, for whatever reason, I kind of dropped my ball. I went down. I started rebounding for him. He was doing the spot shooting thing, and he was just kind of doing this thing. And he was telling me, all right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I was just kind of following his lead. And then after that, he was like, hey, like, do you mind if like I jump in your workout? And I was like, yeah. So we'd work out together, and then that kind of slowly shifted to me working him out. So I kind of took myself out of the equation of I'm not going to do any of the drills. I'm going to just come up with a workout plan for you. So we would have like set days and set times. We'd show up at the gym. We'd work out. And again, this is just me loving basketball and trying to help the team. Like if he played better, we won games, which is what ultimately I wanted. So then we developed like a little bit of like a pre-practice, pre-game routine that we used to do, some floaters, some mid-range stuff, some threes, real simple, but like his numbers improved drastically to the point where like they wrote an article in the Pittsburgh Gazette like about us, and it was kind of funny because it's like I'm a walk on. Why am I getting any type of publicity? But again, I
Yeah.
was just trying to help the team. I didn't really know what I was doing at the time, and his numbers got way better. I mean, again, whether that was for me or not, the jury's out. I don't know. I'll never say it was. Some people think it. It was kind of crazy because they jumped almost like double though. Like he was shooting like in the beginning of the year, like 30 some percent. Then he went to like 50. I mean, it really was like a drastic
Yeah.
increase. So I'd like to think it had a little bit to do with what we were doing, but again, not But I was cutting film for him. I mean, I was doing everything for him, literally like what a coach would do. And the coaches even kind of started making a joke because like we would do our normal pre-practice stuff as a team, but like me and him would be on a side hoop doing something completely different. And it was like, well, how come they get to do their own thing? And it's like he's playing way better. Whatever helps. Like they didn't care. I mean, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you want to win, like I said. And so at the end of the year, like I kind of talked to him, and to this day, I give him almost all the credit of why I'm doing what I'm doing. I knew I always wanted to get into coaching, but I didn't know it would be on the player development side of things, and I definitely didn't know I'd own my own company. So at the end of the year, I had my exit meeting with Coach Toole, and I kind of told Coach Toole, like, listen, I think I want to try to pursue this. Like anyone that's in it full time knows how tough it is. I mean, it's tough to make a living out of it. So my thought was I'll finish school, obviously, because that was never, I was always going to graduate, college. I'll finish school, but while I'm in school, I'll try to build a clientele and try to get a decent amount of kids and players. So when I graduate, I'll be able to kind of not have, a full business, in line, but at least have a good, base and a good start. So once I talked to him, I tell people all the time that was the hardest thing I've ever done because, when you're a player, again, and I'm around basketball literally every day, but like when you're a player, it's different. Like you almost had to take off your shoes and put on a whole different pair of shoes and look at the game like a whole different way, so like that was tough for me. And, Coach Toole, he did, obviously I was a walk on, so I wasn't scoring 30 points a game, but he did understand, I think, the value that I brought in terms of like, I was in the weight room. I was always positive. I always had a lot of energy. I was pushing guys. Like I would always do more than what was required, and that added, I'd like to think, some value to the team and to the program. So he was kind of like, "Are you sure? Like, do you think?" And I'm like, "I think that's the best thing I could do. I mean, I can't be a college athlete and try to run a business. Like it's just and school. It would have been too much. I would have been pulled in too many directions. So that's kind of where I started, where it kind of began. And then I obviously graduated college and then I hit the ground running. And now I'm kind of where I'm at now.
No, that's amazing. Again, like, so there's so much of us like in this, and it's just like really what I feel like separates it is just like your love. Honestly, like
Yep.
just the love for the game and like your love, and then it becomes like not just the game, but then the people in which you work for and work
That's
with.
it. And that's what it's all about for me is like I love basketball. I mean, if one thing that I've learned about myself over the past couple of years, it's like how much basketball literally is everything to me. Like I almost to a fault, almost to where it's like did I ever do anything? Like I don't know how to do anything else. Like I actually had a parent the other day ask me like if you weren't doing this, like what would you be doing? And I said, I honestly have no idea. Like I never had a backup plan. I never had, well, if this fails, then I could always do this or that. Obviously I have a college degree, so I could get a job, but what job that would I really don't know. And some people might cringe and be like, that's not a good way to be. But like for me, that's all I know. I love it. I mean, if I'm not talking about it, I'm watching it. If I'm not watching it, I'm playing it. If I'm not playing it, I'm teaching it. Like it's just it literally consumes me. I mean, if you look around my house, I have jerseys all over. I have pictures of like it's all basketball all the time for me. And like it's just because I love it. And like you said, you made a great point. Like I think that's what separates a lot of guys, because at the end of the day, like you could know a lot, but like you can't fake the passion and the care, so like if you know a lot and you're passionate, you care about it, like that just elevates you to a whole nother level. And that's easy to pick out on guys that try to act like they do or try to pretend that they do versus guys that actually do, live, breathe, eat, sleep, basketball. And I'd like to think that's me, for good or bad. I mean, some people might think it's bad. I think it's all right, but yeah, that's definitely where I'm at it when it comes to that.
Absolutely. Take me through the business element, growing your own company and that avenue and how that's all developed for you, over time since, you've, left school and all that.
Yeah, so I mean, my degree's in sports psychology. So my degree's not in business. I took a marketing class just as like a general, basically like a filler class. Kind of wish I would have taken that more seriously now that I, have a business. But again, that wasn't the plan. So I'm kind of learning on the fly. I mean, like to me, that's the hardest part of doing this is like the business side of things, like the pricing, renting gyms, your taxes, all like hiring. Like right now, I'm kind of in the process. I'm trying to hire a couple people on just to take some players off my plate, some younger kids, just so I have more
Mhm.
time, for my high, because I'm primarily high school, college, and pro. Like that's kind of where I lie. I don't really work with many young kids anymore, just because I don't have time. But there are a
Right.
lot of young kids that would like to work, with the company. So I'm kind of in the process of trying to hire people, which is a whole nother, bag of problems. So like the business stuff is hard, way harder than the basketball stuff. But in order to, have the basketball stuff, you got to be able to do the business stuff. So like just like learning, and like that's where like I just like how like basketball coaches pick other basketball coaches' minds. I pick, business owners' minds. Hey, how do you do this, or how would you do that, or how would you price that, or how would you price this? Like it's all about like obviously you have to make money, but it's like how could you do it in the most efficient way possible? Because right now, I mean, in the summertime, I'm in the gym literally from 8 to 9, like all day, and I love it. Don't get me wrong, but I'm only 26 years old, so I'm young,
Right.
but like
Right.
I'm also a long term thinker, so it's like, is that sustainable? Can you do that forever? I don't know. So like I'm trying to kind of think about, well, how can I, maximize and make my days a little bit more efficient? So I'm talking to some people about that. But the business stuff it's nice because you get to kind of, do, go at your own beat. But with that being said, like people all the time, like if I have friends, oh hey, you want to do this, you want to do that, and it's like I can't, I have workouts, tonight. Oh well, can't you cancel them? I mean, yeah, I could, but that then you become the dude that is, unreliable and he
Yep.
canceled. Like so, like the scheduling is nice because you can, make your own schedule. But at the end of the
Mhm.
day, you can't though. Like
Yeah,
it's a
yeah, yeah.
fine line between like you
Yep.
have to work when you could work, and it would be great. Like my mom the other day was even talking to me about vacation. Like, oh, we're going to Florida, in April. You should. And I'm like, I can't. You know what? Yes, you can. I'm like, no, I can't. Like I don't want to, and that's more so because like I don't want to leave my players. Like I'm here for them, and that's what I want. I'm not a big vacation guy as is, so it's like I don't want to do that. So like the scheduling is like kind of a pro, but it's not really a pro because you're kind of still have to work those hours. You don't really have much of a choice unless you don't want to work, like I said, and then you become unreliable and then you lose clients. So it's kind of like you have to grind, like especially right now, like I'm in that phase of just pounding the pavement. I'm grinding, I'm working a lot. But again, I'm not complaining. You'll never hear me complain. I might be like, man, I'm in the gym all day today, but I'm not gonna cry about it. It's like at the end of the day, I'm in the gym all day, teaching basketball. I mean, trust me, life could be much worse. But that the business side is interesting because it's a lot harder than I thought, but I wouldn't change anything about it.
Without question, without question. So let's go through this now. Just kind of your own core values. whether that's business, whether that's just you personally, like your core values that you kind of live by on a daily basis.
Yeah, so like for me, I am the definition of like, at least I like to think like someone that I practice what I preach. I mean, I'm an extremely hardworking guy. I mean, I wake up every day at 5 a.m. I go, I work out. Like I'm that guy. Like no one's making me do that. I'm not saying if you're not waking up at 5, you're not where. I'm not saying that. That's just how I am. Though I'm very disciplined. Like I'm very committed to what I want to do. So like, but like when it comes to my personal core values, that's what I push on, my players. And I just named a couple. I mean, the work ethic is huge to me. The commitment side is huge. Like, what are you doing? Like, are you committed to doing it? Or if you're not committed to doing it, that's a red flag right there. Like, it doesn't even matter what it is, just in everyday life. Like, especially with the new year, a lot of New Year resolution people, whatever. And that's great. But like, commit to it, do it. And then you got the discipline factor too, which kind of goes hand in hand with commitment. Like, do what you say you're going to do and do it all the time. Like that's big for me. And then like I always talk about this idea of purpose. Like what like why are you playing basketball? Like there's some kids that I work with that are in high school, they just want to have a great high school career, which is completely fine. Like I get that. And they might not be good enough to play in college if they wanted to, so like that's fine. But like for me, you have to establish like what is that purpose? Like what is your long-term goal? Like why do you play? You play for fun? Do you play because you want to, get out of a situation? Do you play because you want a free education? Like that stuff to me is important. So like the values that I live on a daily basis personally is the same values that I like to think I bring out in the company, because that's just who I am. Like so it's very easy for me to be authentic and to be who I am, and not try to fake it, not try to push all this, rah stuff on kids.
Hmm.
Because like you can't, if you're a player and I'm talking to you and I say, hey, listen, like you got to clean up your diet, like you're out of shape, you got to get in better shape. You're not going to look at me and go, well, look, you eat like crap and you're out of shape. I'm in great shape. I eat good. Like I eat very clean, very strict diet. I have very strict, workout routine. Like I'm in shape. So like it's almost like that Last Dance Michael Jordan quote when he said, I wouldn't ask anybody to do what I wouldn't do. And like that's how I like to live. Like when I talk to kids about getting X amount of shots up, you got to shoot hundreds of shots before school or after school or whatever. Like I did that, like I know, like I'm not going to try to, sell you this fake thing of, okay, you got to shoot 10,000 shots a day like that. No, you don't need to do that, but you got to shoot hundreds, like at least, if not thousands, like, so like for me, that idea of living what I'm trying to instill in these players is huge. And that's what I do literally every day. And they know that from like, whether it's following me on social media, whether it's, just knowing me as an individual, they know that I am that way in real life. So they know that if I'm working with this guy, I better, kind of keep up with him. Cause I'll have kids messing around with me. He's like, hey, coach, what time did you wake up yesterday? I woke up, earlier than you. And like, it's almost like a game. And it's like, I like that. Like I like you to try to, outdo me. Although I tell kids all the time, I'm like, listen, don't wake up at 5. That's not good. Like I'm not, sleep is important. I'm not, don't do
Hmm.
that. I'm wired different. I'm crazy when it comes to that. But like, that's what I mean though. So it almost becomes like a game within a game. And like, that's the number one thing I try to do though, is whatever I, am telling these players, I try to live myself.
Those standards, and keeping those standards daily. And you say yourself, like you, if you yourself aren't that standard, how can you talk all this stuff with all your players? And hey, you gotta do X, Y, Z. No, like I gotta be that standard every single day, first and foremost. So I
Yep.
believe that is definitely, you gotta be the example.
Yep.
But now take me through this, because obviously you just mentioned it, like, you have younger players, meaning below, high school, middle school, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that want to work with you. And obviously, there's a ton of people, that man, woman, that work with you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you identify, like, all right, that's a type of player I want to work with, and versus not? Because there is that line, like you could get all these clients in the world, but it's like you got to have the right clients that are about your same values.
And that's huge to me, because like a lot of people will just, and when I first started, I work with anybody, like that's how it, because that's how you have to get started. I mean, anybody you talk to that's in this space is going to agree. I mean, you work with a second grader who can't walk and chew gum at the same time, but you learn a lot, like you learn a lot, and that's important, growth for you. But like for me, if you're not going to work hard, that's an automatic red flag. I mean, I'm not a babysitter, like you'd be surprised too. Like that doesn't even just apply to younger kids. I mean, that's high school, college guys, girls that come in, and it's like, what are we doing here, man? I mean, what, like, I had a kid a couple weeks ago that I literally asked that, I walked up to him and I'm like, dude, what are we doing? I'm like, this is a joke. I said, you're not getting better. I'm not getting better. No one's getting better right now. So like what's up with that? So like, number one, if you don't work, I'm not the guy. Number two is, like I said, you have to be committed. Like the idea of, if you show up and you expect me to snap my fingers and you just become better, like I don't sell that. Like I don't tell parents like, hey, yeah, like if he wants to become a better shooter, I can make him a better shooter in an hour. Like that's not. So like, if you're not going to be committed to, and that's not even like coming, every week or every, just like committed to getting better and committed to me and to coming and to like the process, because it, and everyone, every coach knows it, like it's a process. Like if you want to become a good shooter, it's a lot of form shooting, it's a lot of pickup, it's a lot of boring stuff, but like that's how you become a good shooter. So like, if you're not going to be committed to that process, like that, I mean, that there's no point in us working, because I teach in progressions. So, like I use the example all the time, like when you're in school, you take algebra 1 before you take algebra 2. Like that's how I like to think I am. If you can't do a jab step, you're not going to be able to do a jab step counter. You know what I mean? Like, so like if I see you once and we work on a jab step, and then I see you 3 months later and I go, okay, today we're going to add, we're going to jab, we're going to counter. And you look at me and go, wait, how do we do that again? Like that's just going to slow the process down, so it's like, you're not committed to the process. And then the last one, like I mentioned with the values, is the purpose. Like why are we here? Like that's one thing I ask players, one of the first questions I ask, whether you're younger, older, doesn't matter. Like I got pro guys that I'll ask, all right, like why are we here? Like, what are we doing? Well, I want a new contract, or I want a better opportunity, or, I want to make more money to take care of my family. Or you got college guys that want to get to play pro. You got high school kids that want to play in college. Like, so like, because I'm going to give you everything I have regardless, no matter if you want to be a great high school player or if you want to be a pro. Like I'm going to give you everything I have. But and anybody that's been around, high level athletes knows, like there's a different level you got to take. There's a different notch you have to go up if you really want to, be great and like, elevate to that next level. So like those three things, like if you're not going to do that and you're not going to answer those questions and be honest with me, and I could tell, just like most probably can, like where guys lie, but I ask players that, and their answers mean a lot. Like, because I had a kid, actually a high school kid in the area who's not that bad, and he reached out to me last week, and he wanted to get some work in, and he's like, how do we go about it, whatever. And I sent him some questions, like kind of just like what I asked you, like, what's your work ethic like? Are you? I love asking the question too. What's on time? What's on time to you? And well, when the workout starts. No, that's not on time. That's late. Like that's, and that, you'd be surprised how many people tell me that. Like they'll, well, obviously on time is when the workout starts. Like, no, that's not on time, man. Like 10, 15 minutes is on time. And I know some people feel different about that. Oh, as long as they have their shoes on by the time, like, all right, that's fine. That's you. You're not me though. Like for me, on time is 10 to 15 minutes early. So like little things like that. So I sent out the questions. I haven't got a response. And my take on that is this. He wasn't expecting that. He was expecting, okay, the cost is this, the gym is here, this is what I have open next week, and we're gonna go. Not, well, what's your work ethic like? What's on time? What's your purpose? Like, are you committed? If we do this for X amount of time, are you going to be frustrated? Are you going to be willing to do that? Like he wasn't expecting that. So when you throw that at kids, and this is a junior in high school. So he's not even really, he's a kid, but like not really, he's not like in the 5th grade. So it's like when you throw that at kids, they kind of look at you kind of like, really? And it's like, yeah, man, I don't work with everybody. And that's what I tell people. And that's kind of the reputation I've built, which I like, because I don't want, anybody, just, text him. He'll work with you. If we're not a good fit, and that's not your fault, that's not my fault, and that's not me being arrogant. That's just me understanding, like you said, like the type of players I want to work with. And if you don't fit that, then unfortunately that's an issue. And there's a million other guys that I'm sure that would take your money and that would, train you, but they're not going to give you the other values that I believe in and that I instill in myself and in my players. Like they're not going to give you that. So it's kind of like trying to find perfect matches, and it's tough. And some kids might not start off as a perfect match, but as you get to know them and as you progress with them, they kind of start to mold into what you would like, and that's when they become a better player, and that's when that light bulb goes off. So just that's one of the toughest parts too, is finding that player and finding those people that align with you, because not everyone does.
That's yeah. I mean, it's everything you're saying. This isn't even This is not basketball stuff. This is just how you carry yourself, how you go about everything. Like the way you,
Yep.
as you say, like the way you go about anything is the way you go about everything.
Yes.
And having those people that are so coming and hey, like the junior in high school, like he's also got to learn. But like, you know what? You sending that question, air, like, all right, maybe he doesn't respond, but maybe like down the road, like either it's 6 months from now or maybe 5 years from now, like that's a moment where it's like, damn, like that dude actually sought what was best for me. Now,
Yes.
maybe you two never actually get to work with each other, but like a moment like that, I believe will resonate with that person down the line, and that is so important. And
Yeah.
and I feel like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, not to cut you off, but like that's like you hit a great point. Like I want to work with good people. Like I want to work with great people, man. Like at the end of the day, I do have some players that I work with that they're not great basketball players. They're not. But man, they're early. They show up, man. The one kid I got, he's a freshman. I love him to death. I've been working with him for years. He's gotten 100% better. If you would have saw him day one, you would be like, "Holy crap!" If you see him now, you'd be like, "Wow, man! Like you've." Now I don't even know if this kid's going to be a really good high school player. He might just be average. I have no idea. But man, does he do everything I tell him? Does he do? Is he committed? Like it's just like, to me, everyone's ceiling is different, and that's the basketball side. But like, he's a great dude. He shows up early. He does, like I said, what I told him. He's a good kid. He listens. He's respectful. Like stuff like that just goes along. He returns texts in 5 minutes or less. Like I know that's another big one for me, is like return my phone call,
Mhm.
return my text, return my email. Like don't big time me. No one's that busy.
Mhm.
Like come on, give me a break. So like kids like that like are why I do what I do, and like the people aspect. I would do anything for that kid. And just like the majority of my players, like joking around, like always tell them, like, listen, if you're ever drunk and you need a ride home, call me. I'll come pick you up. Like, and I really, really mean that. Like, I would do and that goes beyond basketball. That's a personal thing, because you're a good person. You're a good man. You're a good woman, whatever the case may be. Like I know you want a good life, and basketball isn't everything. So like that's huge too. Is the idea that these are bigger than players. They're people, and I want to work with great people and good players.
Without question. Now, I know we're going a little bit longer than I said, but
No, 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 no,
you've
no.
been
Listen,
awesome.
I'm a talker, so go ahead. Let's keep it rolling.
Let's keep this going. So, we focused on the off the basketball stuff, which is the most important, as we've discussed here. Take me through your vision, development wise, and obviously, like it's different with each individual person, what they can do skill wise, all that positionally, like all that stuff is different. Well, what's your overall vision for like your development that you provide to your players?
Yeah, so I mean, I think like you hit it on. Obviously, it's very individualized, based on the player. But generally speaking, like I'm a big footwork guy. I think that's very, very important, because that's important like for everything. When you look at passing, when you look at ball handling, when you look at finishing, shooting, all that. So like kind of like a foundation piece is always necessary. And then moving into that, like you got to be able to shoot. Like I think every coach in the world would agree with me on that. Like nowadays, if you can't shoot, it's gonna be tough to play. So like giving them those tools to shoot. And I think the biggest thing with shooting too is if you kind of show them and lead them the way of like what to do, if they're really committed, they'll do it on their own. So like if you kind of give them the tools, you're gonna hope that they're gonna do it on their own. Therefore, that'll kind of make the process a little quicker. And then lastly, like is the conditioning piece. I like incorporating, like whether it's in a shooting drill, finishing drill, ball handling. I like conditioning because like I tweeted something the other day about like I've been to a lot of games, and I've been to, high school, college, pro, men, women, everything, like And the conditioning piece is big because like a lot of really good players can't stay on the floor because they're tired. So it's like trying to kind of not just get on the line and run, like we're going to get shots or we're going to try to add something, to this. Like, I think that's big. And then my last piece that is kind of like a big thing for me is the variability, like when it comes to like the drill, if you will, you know what I mean? Like, obviously decision making is important as well, but like the variability, like, okay, we're going to shoot, catch and shoot three from the corner. Then you're going to lift to the wing. You got a one dribble pull up. Then you're going to back up. I'm going to throw it out to you. You're going to come off a ball screen for a three. So you have like three different shots, but all on the same side of the floor. Like, so trying to add that like variability, like I'm big on that. I'm not big on cones or anything. I don't really use a lot of cones, and that's not shade to people who use cones. I think cones are great, especially for younger kids. I think they're great. But if you give me a college player, I'll play D, or I'll bring somebody in and they'll play D, or I'll set the screen, or he'll set the screen. Like, someone's gonna, just because you got to see bodies. Once you reach a certain point, like you have to start seeing actual looks. You know what I mean? Like, so when you're younger, cones are great, I think, and I think even when you're older, there's a time and a place for them. But personally, I want bodies, over cones. So like, those are the big things for me. And then obviously, like you touched on, is like the individualization of it. Like, okay, well, where do you get shots? How do you get shots? What offense the team runs? Like, I'm a film guy. I love watching film. So like, I start working with a player, the first thing I do is dive in, into their film and kind of see how they're getting shots, where their shots, even the offense that they run, just to kind of think, well, you might not get this shot a lot, but you're going to have the opportunity to get this shot. So like things like that, but that goes into the, the individualization of it. But yeah, every player is different. Personally, I like individual workouts. I know a lot of, especially in this space, like, again, from a business standpoint, that's not always the best, because, with the money, you get more kids, like, again, that's business, like, it is what it is. So like, I do run group stuff for like decision making and things like that. But man, like, to me, there's nothing better than just getting one player in the gym and just working, like, there's nothing like empty gym, it gives me goosebumps because I love it, like, so it's like, to me, I personally like that more. And I do a lot of that, like, I do probably more individual stuff and I do group stuff. And again, business standpoint could be better, but personal standpoint, I love it. So it's like, that's kind of where I'm at with that. Like, as long as you could get other bodies in the gym and it's not, just you in a chair, like, that's where the individual workouts kind of lack. But that's kind of where I'm at with that. And again, everybody's different, so it's kind of tough to give you the general, but that's kind of like the cookie cutter, layout.
Yeah, I from my standpoint, like, as making it as game like situations, game speed, like that way, and incorporating obviously all the skill sets within everything. That's the best way to go about it.
Yeah,
If we can
100%.
incorporate both and all that, and the speed of it and the tempo of it, and obviously like individuals got to be ready to work, all that, like that's the level in which you want to be at. Because I agree, like, and like group workout stuff's cool, but getting that one-on-one in the gym, developing that person, we're attacking whatever we're attacking, like, I don't think there's anything better either.
Well,
So I'm definitely
and,
with you on that.
and the thing with that too, like, is that's where you become, really familiar with the player, and with the person, so like,
Yes.
that's when, you got water breaks and you're bullshit, like, that's like, free throws, you're talking to them, and like things like that, like, that's where you become very like involved outside of just, oh yeah, I'm going to a workout today. It's like, no, like, you're going to work out with me. That's just going to be me and you. I'm going to see your best days. I'm going to see your worst days. I'm going to see you after you broke up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend. I'm going to see you, if you failed a test, like, or if you passed it, like, you're going to see players in all those, emotions. So it's like, then when you go to the games and you watch them play, it's kind of funny because you're like, man, I remember last week when, he or she was, in a real bad mood and they were missing shots, and now they're playing well. So it's like, you're like the behind the scenes guy, and like, and I really, really enjoy that because I don't have any kids. So like, to me, a lot of these players I work with, they're extended family, like they're my, my brother, my sister, like they're really close to me. So like, that, those times that even we spend together, I'm sure they, enjoy, but I enjoy just as much because it's like, those are my people. Those are my friends. Those are I don't look at them as, oh, well, they're clients, or they
Right.
pay my bills, or they like, no, those are my, those are my people, and those are the people I enjoy spending, every day with. So like that's also big, and that's big with the individual stuff.
It makes it real. It makes it
Yeah.
matter, and that's the biggest thing.
Yep.
Last couple things here. Now, I'm all about getting better. Like, we gotta be constantly improving. Like, we can't be like, "Hey, you're 26, you have a company, like, I'm
Yep.
good." Like, and
Yep.
I already can tell, like, that's not you. Like,
No.
constantly
Yeah. No.
pushing, constantly developing, constantly growing, right? So what's that vision for your own development here going forward? Like, what even like now, like, all right, these are a couple of things like I'm working on trying to get better at today.
I think my thing, like you said, is like I'm always literally I always try to get better. Like for me, like my ultimate goal is like I want to be able to sit down with anybody in basketball and talk basketball. Whether you're a coach, whether you're a trainer, whether you're a fan, whether you're a player. So like if I sat down with Phil Jackson, I want to be able to talk about the triangle and know what I'm talking about. Like I want to be able to sit at any table. So like for me, like obviously the player development stuff is big, and I'm always growing in that, but like also just like learning offensive concepts, defensive concepts. Like we have Youngstown State, University over by me. So like I've been talking to their coaches. I've been going to some practices. I've been like, hey, what do you do on this or what do you do on that? Like pick and roll coverages, like stuff like that. So like at growth as an overall basketball mind is very big to me. And then as an individual, like I'm big on like personal development. So like I love like how I could optimize my life, how I could like become better. So like for me that started with, got to eat better. Then I started with obviously you got to work out, but then like little things like, if you journal in the morning or if you read, I have a book, it's called The Daily Stoic. Every morning it has a different, reading, and it's like it's from different, Stoics, and it's cool because some days it feels so relevant. Some days you're like, man, I needed that today. So it's like kind of, and then I have things I write down like three things that went well yesterday, three things that could have went better, things like that. Just kind of keeping myself grounded and keeping myself like, and all the time, like I'm just trying to get better in every way. I mean, professionally, career wise, and then personally. So for me, it's always about finding like the next thing, like how I could elevate even a little bit more. Like if I take this vitamin or if I take this supplement or if I take this, like just like how I could, feel better, look better, perform better, things like that. But from the, business standpoint, obviously learning more, about business, how I can optimize my time and how I could, make sure that I'm able to, live a life while, doing this, as a career. But like we touched on earlier, like I said, my life is basketball. So like you don't really get away from that. It's kind of like it's all the time. I come home from the gym and I turn on League Pass and I watch a game. Like it's just you don't really, and I'm on my computer at the same time. Watching. I'm on Synergy or whatever. So like you don't really ever get away from it. But that's because I love it. But I think that's big too. Is kind of trying to maybe find something to help me. Kind of step away and kind of well, I could do this and kind of let my mind loose a little bit, which is always a good thing. But literally, when it comes to getting better, anything and everything I could do just to get a little bit better, I'm willing to do.
Absolutely. Last question here, and this is kind of what I'm about. Like, becoming really the best version of myself, and then being in the industries that we are, like, as much as it's about me becoming the best version of myself, like it's about everybody else around me helping them become the best version of themselves.
Yep.
So what's the best version of you?
I think the best version of me is helping people, but using basketball as the vehicle to do that. I'll never forget. I had a very good conversation with my college counselor, and we were kind of talking about what my next move was. And when you tell anybody that you're, a basketball trainer, they kind of look at you and kind of laugh, like, "What? You're like?" I've had people like ask me how I make money. Yeah, like you tell them what you do, and it's like, "Oh, I'm a basketball trainer, or, I'm a basketball coach, whatever." And they're like, "Oh, that's fun, like, so how do you like make money?" And it's kind of like, well, that was a slap in the face. So it's like, so like that was an actual conversation I had where she was kind of was like, like, well, where do you see this going? Like, where do you see yourself? Like, how can you make this into a living? And like, she was like, what do you love to do? And I said, well, obviously I love to play basketball. I love basketball. And she said, yeah, but like beyond that. And I said, I love to help people. And I really do, like, any, whether that's basketball or just in everyday life. I love to help people, and I get that from my mom. I think my mom is a giant, like, helper. Like, anything she can do, she'll do to this day. So, like, she was like, well, use basketball then to do your ultimate, passion, which is helping people. And that kind of stuck with me because that makes sense. Like, some people, not everybody, but the majority of people are in basketball to help people. They want to see improvement. They want to build relationships. They want to see, like, I tell people all the time, when I go to watch players that I train play and they play well, I leave happier than when I played if I played well. It's like, and that's how I know I'm in the right thing and I'm doing the right thing, because, like, I leave and I'm smiling ear to ear, not because it's like, look at me, but it's like, man, I know how hard that kid bust their ass. Like, I know how hard some days were, and I know how hard, they worked, and how committed they are, and like how they gave me everything all the time. So, like, that truthfully makes me happy, and it makes me feel fulfilled. So, like, my best version is obviously basketball, but I think at the end of the day, it's how much value and how much, like, joy and happiness and help I'm providing to other people every day.
It's big time. Honestly, this was big time. I'm serious.
No, listen,
Uh,
I appreciate you, because when you reach out, I always love to do this. And it's funny because everybody always like, yeah, just, 30, 20 minutes. It's like, nah, man, like, you don't know me. Like, we're gonna go, we're gonna go for a little longer, just because, again, I mean, I hope that people could kind of understand and kind of hear it in my voice, and hear how I talk, and how, how I handle myself, like how passionate I am about it. I mean, that you're not gonna find, because that's something I get a lot about, like Twitter, like, about my tweet. Oh yeah, what? How do you schedule your tweets, or what do you think? I'm like, dude, listen, I'll be sitting, I'm talking to you, or I'm talking to somebody else, and something comes up, and I go, wow, I'm gonna tweet that. I grab my phone. It's my actual thoughts. Like, so people are always interested to kind of like talk to me, because they're like, I'm sure people, and I know people. You meet them in real life, and you're like, man, you're nothing like when you're on the internet. Like, you're Jesus. But like, that's like, this is how I am. Like, this is how it's how I carry myself every day. Like, I try to be as positive and optimistic as I can, and I'm a basketball dude. Like, that's straight up. Like, I'm a basketball dude through and through. And I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you having me, because, again, anytime I could do this, I'm always gonna be willing to do it.
no, of course. Sports conversation here with James Navalance, Anthony Pugh. This was big time.
Thanks, man.